Very good. I'm going to call this meeting of the Railroad Transportation Safety District for Monday, June 3rd, 2024 to order. This meeting of the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Railroad Transportation Safety District, commonly referred to as the RTSD, is subject to and adheres to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection and is posted by the entrance to this room. The RTSD agenda for today's meeting was posted on the RTSD website on May 29th, 2024. The RTSD website is also accessible by links from both the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County official government sites. In addition, on May 29th, 2024, the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin boards located in the City Hall, first floor, 555 South 10th Street. A copy of the agenda is also available at the entrance to this room. One copy of the meeting agenda and all the materials being considered today are located at the dais, and complete copies of these materials are on file at the RTSD office at 949 West Bond Street, Suite 200. I would ask for Sid, for you to do a roll call this morning.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Next item on the agenda, number 3, is approval of the minutes.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion by Admonson, second by Carlson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Motion carries 4-0 to approve the minutes. Next item, number 4, election of officers, president, vice president, and secretary.
I move that we keep the same slate of officers.
And let's thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second. We have Vest as president, James Michael Bowers vice president, and who's secretary? Roma. Okay. That's a winning slate right there. Very good. We have a motion and a second. Motion by Roma, second by Justin. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 All right. We will retain the same officers for the
And
next
for
year.
clarity, that's a one-year term, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We do this at the June meeting every year.
Sure.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I guess if we want to clear, the chair or the president is a commissioner because the commissioners are the taxing authority. So
Okay.
that's been the practice.
Sure, makes sense. Thank you.
Number 5, report of statement of financial activity. Kevin Nelson.
Good morning. I'll review the May 17th statement of financial activity. As of that date, we had collected 105% of our budgeted total receipts. Most of that increase has to do with the investment interest income. We had budgeted $350,000 for the year, and through the 17th of May, we had collected nearly $1 million, and so that's why that number is as high as it is. As far as disbursements go, we have currently spent about 11% of our budget. That is largely attributed to the construction project costs have not been coming in, or we've not been spending those as quickly as we had originally budgeted those, and I'm sure Roger will be speaking to that later this morning. As far as our cash and investments go, as of May 17th, we were just under $1.1 million in our ending cash balance. A good chunk of that has now been invested over into money markets, so that if you look at the cash balance today, it's not quite as high as it was on the 17th of May. We also had just shy of $35.1 million sitting in our investment accounts. And as the board is well aware, but I'll just say for the public record, it's been the intentions of this board to be setting aside money each year for a large construction project at 33rd and Cornhusker. And so we continue to work towards that goal. Since we met last 3 months ago, we've actually put away an extra $4.4 million into that investment balance. So our county treasurer's office continues to do a great job for us finding the best interest rates out there. One I'd like to highlight is if you look at our listing of investments at the bottom there, about the fourth one down, Frontier Bank. We renewed that this year since our last meeting at 5%. That investment CD had been paying at 3.68. So obviously a significant increase in the savings or in the amount of interest that we're going to be able to earn on those dollars. And so that's really why you see our investment income being so much higher than what we'd originally budgeted.
And we have 6.3 million in that account. That's
actually, we increased that by 3.3 million. 3 months ago, we were sitting with about 3 million in there. We added an additional 3.3 million this last quarter. So, anybody have any questions?
I did have one, Kevin. Up to the first line under disbursements, commissions, refunds to the state of Nebraska. Could you clarify what we're paying there?
What those are is when the county treasurer collects the tax proceeds on behalf of the RTSD, they are allowed to keep a small percentage of that back as a commission for basically handling the collection of that on behalf of RTSD.
So that's the county treasurer's office?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically paid to the county treasurer.
I was hoping we weren't giving any to the state personally, but
Not that I'm aware of.
all right. Very good. Well, to Kevin's point, before I go, any other questions, commissioners, councilmen, for Kevin? To Kevin's point, this is a lot of money put away, but the reality is we have $100+ million project that we've been pursuing since I came on the RTSD, and we are making progress, as we'll hear later. But this is going to be an enormous cost, and we need to be prepared when we hit the construction time. So that's the purpose of stockpiling $30+ million. So very good. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
We'll move on then to,
Should be a motion to accept the financial report.
Thank you,
please.
Roger.
I move that we accept the financial report.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Roma, second by Justin to accept the financial report. Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Number 6, report regarding county budget status. Roger.
And with permission from the board, if it's okay, I'll just kind of quickly report on 6 and 7 somewhat together for where we are on the current budget and then
That
the
should be
proposed
fine.
budget, if that's okay. As Kevin said, we're really doing pretty well. Again, as we haven't spent a significant amount of the construction budget. It's simply the status of 33rd and Cornhusker, where we thought we might be, was not as far along. So we've continued to work on the draft environmental document. And then we talked a little bit about the budget for next year. I adjusted the CIP to show that we're spending less capital money on 33rd and Cornhusker this year and moving that on down so that we have a little bit better record of when that money will get spent due to the delays we've had with the environmental document. Kevin also covered commissions. There's about a $40,000 increase in the operating expenses, but the majority of that is the commissions. And the good thing about spending more on commissions means we've got more revenue coming in. That's the bottom line. The labor services, we proposed increasing $3,000 next year from 70 to 73, and the current budget also shows that the city has not invoiced us yet for superintendent and support services, so that's something I'll be working on this month to make sure that those invoices get in and the city reimburses, or that the RTSD reimburses the city for those costs. Insurance continues to go up. I'm sure if you're getting your statements on your homes and vehicles these days, so we increased the insurance a little bit. Then move down to construction projects. Again, we had budgeted $2.7 million for 33rd and Cornhusker, thinking we would be further along and be getting into some final design and maybe even starting to think about some appraisals for right-of-way. We've spent a little less than $200,000. I want to commend our consultant for not spending unnecessary dollars if we've continued to wait and move ahead, waiting on the environmental document. So we're on track, and then I guess anybody that's listening, even though we budgeted $2.7 million, anything that's unspent always goes right back into the cash balance and has to be rebudgeted for the next year, so the public can be assured unspent dollars go through a budgeting process, will go back to the cash balance. Thinking about, again, the proposed budget for next year, the numbers that you are seeing on the far right side for the proposed budget. Like I said, we increased labor $3,000. We increased insurance and commissions a bit. Down in the construction projects, consistent with what we've done in the past, we have $300,000 for crossing improvement split between the city and the county. And we continue to have a little bit more money. We had increased miscellaneous engineering and emergency and safety from those in the past. We budgeted $100,000. We've moved those up to $300 and $200 for a little more flexibility. We haven't spent much of that. The $20,000 in there for miscellaneous engineering is what we have spent on Southeast Quiet Zone, trying to continue to move that ahead. We added a project with nods of concurrence from the board in the March meeting. Parks and Recreation was here. Excuse me. Explaining the Beal Slough Trail and the undercrossing under OPPD. So we added a Beal Slough OPPD undercrossing to the construction projects after upgrades and redoing the estimates. I think at the March meeting we talked around $200,000. That has gone up to $295,000. Later on in the meeting, if the board is still receptive to supporting the parks on that, we have an interlocal agreement, and that interlocal agreement will have the $295,000 as the upper limit. So total operating and construction budget request for this upcoming year would be the $5,561,550. So I would answer any questions. Again, these are the same numbers that we went over in March, with the exception of the Beal Slough undercrossing.
Roger, that excess gain, if you will, is that earmarked specifically then for the 33rd and Cornhusker project, or is that just going back into general RTSD funds? Does that make sense? So
it goes back in, but we've rebudgeted, and I try to carry about a 10 or 12 year showing. Maybe you have a cash balance of $36 million, but here's how we think we would spend it in the future. It's not earmarked legally like the city council. When you appropriate money in a fiscal year, that stays with the project. With the RTSD, any unexpended money goes back into the cash balance and then has to be rebudgeted in future years. So maybe that's why we're a little more sensitive, saying we need to continue to save that money for 33rd and Cornhusker, even though it's not earmarked for that. Okay.
Any other questions? I do have one, Roger. We are increasing the 33rd and Cornhusker construction costs from 2.7 to 4.2. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, we are, but the reason we are is we budgeted 2.7 this year, and we've not done that work and not spent that money.
Okay,
So part of that 2.7 is added to what we would have thought we would have spent in the upcoming year, so it's available for us to go ahead and get into final design and moving ahead as we get through a public hearing.
and I know we're gonna get a lot more information on that down the road. I just-
Well, the good thing, I guess you would say, is we didn't spend the 2.7, we spent less than 200,000. The cash is still there to continue to move ahead.
Okay. All right. Anything else, folks? And so that, Roger, is 6 and 7, because you've kind of given us the look at the upcoming budget as well.
Yeah, and on item 7, I would look for a motion from the board to approve that budget for next year or not.
I move that we approve the budget for 24, 25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget for 24-25. Please call the roll, Sid. Yes.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Number 8, consideration of levy request for 2024 tax roll.
The RTSD falls under the lid limit law, and as such needs to request a levy from Lancaster County Commissioners. We've done that routinely, and at this point in time, looking at where we are on 33rd and Cornhusker and with the valuation, our current levy is $0.022217 per $100 of evaluation. And as we continue to wait to move ahead, I guess I'm comfortable with continuing that. I don't think at this point we necessarily need to request an increase in that levy. There would be increased revenue coming in just due to the valuation increase, but certainly that's left to the purview of the board on what you think we need to do, but I'm totally comfortable with moving ahead and maintaining the levy.
Just 25 cents worth of perspective. Last year, at my encouragement, we asked for an increase, and when that came forward, we about had to give Sean Flowerday resuscitation there because it was not well received by the board. So I think we're wise to stay the course and stay on the current levy. We won't get an increase from the county board, I can.
And you have to keep in mind, too, that we've been having some tremendous interest rates on the
Yeah.
investments.
Interest rates and the valuation continues to go up, so our savings for our project continue to grow, and that's a good thing, yes.
So I would entertain a motion.
I think I did
You did?
for the
on this one?
2024.
Those for the budget.
Oh, for the budget review.
We
I'm
are on
sorry.
item
Yes.
8, levy request.
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve the levy request
Okay, at the current level.
at the current level, yes.
I would second.
Motion by Roma, second by Justin to maintain the current levy request. Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item number 9.
Okay, consistent with kind of history in the past, there are LB 989 passed in 1998, put a lid on certain restricted funds. There are allowances to go and request a budget that exceed those restrictions. And one of those is that if approved by 3/4 majority vote of a governing body, in the future you have the right to increase that budget authority by 1%. And I know City Council, County Board routinely have done that over the years. So just to make sure, I would want the public to know is that you are, if you approve that, it allows a 1% increase in that, but it would require an additional vote of this body to increase the budget. You're not increasing the budget 1%. You're giving yourself the ability and the authorization to do that in the future if and when you choose to.
Any questions? I would wait for a motion here.
I will Move that we can accept the additional 1% levy authority, lid authority.
I'll second.
Motion by Roma, second by Justin to approve the additional 1% lid authority. Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Motion carries 4-0. 10, item 10, reported projects and crossing updates.
Okay. Chris Humphrey is not here today, so I'll do my best to fill in a little bit, and I'll do that by asking a new employee or a newer employee at LTU, City of Lincoln, Brandon, to come forward and give us an update on 33rd and Cornhusker. Brandon, if you want to come up. Brandon is going to be more involved in the day-to-day engineering and take some of the load off of Chris Humphrey as she does more administrative stuff. But Brandon, we're excited to have Brandon here and to help out. So Brandon, come
Well,
ahead.
welcome, Brendan.
Good morning. So I was putting together a few notes here as I get caught up to speed. Obviously, as Roger said, I'm taking over day-to-day operations with Chris. But first off, I think it's a significant milestone that our draft EA was accepted and signed by FHWA. So that was a huge decision that we were able to get there. Kind of where we're at as far as the project goes, we will be working towards our public hearing. And so that is our content's supposed to be due sometime this week. Our consultants are working on that. With that, what the public hearing content consists of is our transcripts, our poster boards, our our hearing plan for what we decide to engage with the public on. And that will go into review also by FHWA and NDOT, Nebraska DOT, to review all our content and materials that we propose using during the hearing. So they'll go through their reviews. With that, we're looking at a date for a public hearing of September, in September. With our content material, we are hoping to have that reviewed and have an approval by August. Incorporating RTSD's review comments, FHWA, and NDOT's as well. Moving ahead from there, we're looking at progressing from our preliminary engineering to our environmental assessment where we're at currently. As we move towards, we will be able to start getting deliverables from our consultants and putting together a scope for our final design and plans that will be succeeding that decision document whenever we get post the public hearing. Going from there, the next kind of thing as far as an update goes is we're still waiting on the appeal of the RCE grant. So that's the Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant. They did roll in the 23 and 24. So previously it was $540 million that would be available. Now they have up to $1.2 billion available. So when that becomes open for proposals, we'll be submitting that and getting our documentation ready to go with that request. Roger, is there anything I may have left out?
Any questions, folks? I have a couple, and Brendan, it may not be fair to put you on the spot, but Roger's available too.
Okay.
You started with the acceptance of the environmental plan,
Yes.
which is more than significant because we have been at that point several times and not gotten approval, right? Roger, I mean, what's a little bit of history here?
We've been at this multiple years and have gone back out to the public a couple of times to make sure we had public buy-in, that the purpose and need on the project was being met. So yes, this is a significant milestone, and we are excited to be at this point so that we really feel like now we can begin to move ahead.
It kind of feels like everybody's on the same page as far as moving ahead now, which wasn't true. You know, I've been on this board since 2019, and we've been in this same pattern. So crossing this line And we keep talking about construction, but this is a big milestone towards
Yeah.
construction.
Really puts us in the position for final approval and be able to move ahead with final design, selecting the consultant to do that, and maybe then being in a position of starting some appraisals for early acquisition. We've had a lot of individuals and businesses that have kind of been under the cloud and the shadow
Yeah.
of this project
Yeah.
and not always able to know what to do with their property or their business, and this puts us on track to keep moving ahead.
Give them a clear picture of where we're going,
Yep.
yeah. I guess Brandon's really getting things done since he came on board.
Yes, we'll give him the credit.
I know it's a big team effort. And then as far as the federal grant, we applied for that last year. It was not accepted, but this is a massive grant.
I still remain shocked that we weren't selected the last time around. I think this project perfectly fits the intention and the purpose of the Railroad Crossing Elimination Program. The fact that they're combining 2 years with over $1 billion, I remain hopeful. We had a debrief from FRA, Federal Rail Administration, last year. We think there's a few things we can do to improve just the submittal and the proposal itself. We've been continuing to work on communication and education with our congressional delegation, with FRA and FHWA at the national level, so they're more familiar with our project. We continue, I know BNSF Railroad continues to be a supporter of this project and moving ahead. So I will remain optimistic again that we should be able to receive that grant, and that would be a significant financial gain for the community and for the RTSD for the project.
Well, and I'm glad you've tied everybody in too, because I know Congressman Flood's office is very supportive
Yes.
of our efforts here, and I believe at least Senator Fisher would be a good ally to have on board too.
We had letters of support from Senator Fisher, Senator Flood, NDOT, and the railroad. We'll continue to beef those up and have them ready for the next round as well.
Okay. And is it likely we can get some financial support from BNSF if we get to a certain point in the project? Or?
Yes. With the environmental document now appearing to move ahead, there's a couple of agreements that still need to be put together. One is with NDOT for a programming agreement and financial. The other is called the CM agreement, construction maintenance agreement. That'll have to be between the RTSD, the city, and BNSF, that they agree to let us build the viaduct over and the roadway. They grant the easements, and the city is then also agreeing to own and maintain the bridge and take care of it. So, and in that CM agreement, we'll be requesting a minimum of 5%. I'm hoping for closer to 10%, but, and again, they are supportive. So yes, we'll be asking for that. We already have $25 million commitment in writing from the state, and then plus the money the city's been saving in this grant. It's very constructible. It's financially possible to do this.
It's massive change
Yeah.
for that corridor. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the important corridors into our community. Very good. We'll look forward to continued progress in September. Thank you,
All
Brad.
right, thank you.
On a situation where the railroad is less than supportive, we could move on to item B.
Okay, at March, I think our consultant gave a brief update of kind of where we are on the southeast Lincoln Quiet Zone. And we'd indicated at that point we were looking for communication from FRA, Federal Rail Authority, on what the railroad can ask for or not ask for as you're trying to create a quiet zone, because BNSF had continued to ask for some additional study. They wanted to do a connection study called preemption between their signals and the city signals, and they wanted that updated. And of course, they wanted the city to pay or the RTSD to pay for their consultant to do that work. That was another $50,000. We did not believe that that is a requirement of quiet zone, but the railroad is really in a position to just kind of continue to drag their feet and say no. After talking with FRA, I did send another communication to the railroad indicating that FRA believed that preemption review was not a requirement of the quiet zone. And I did get a response back from BNSF, and I'll read just a portion of that. In an effort to be a cooperative partner, BNSF is willing to provide high-level estimates for the Southeast Lincoln Quiet Zone project based on current known information. These estimates would be for informational and planning purposes only, and they are not a limit on the work BNSF will do at the city's cost to implement the quiet zone according to federal regulations. BNSF still asserts that a preemption study is required and must be completed prior to any finalized estimates for field work. So while they'll give us a high-level estimate, I think our consultant had given us an estimate on this project in the $4+ million, and we strongly believe that is based on just replacing the minimum equipment at the crossings for the railroad. And I am convinced that once you start fixing or replacing one part of a gate or a light, their requirement in the past has always been you got to replace the equipment at the entire intersection. So I am confident that those estimates are low, and short of doing that other study, which would be spending maybe another $50,000. I'm not sure that we get anywhere. I think we're a little bit at a stalemate, and the railroad will continue to advocate for additional study before anything would be. So we would have an absolute exact number for the board to consider whether or not to move ahead with a quiet zone. And even getting the railroad to sign an agreement, I think, will be an uphill battle on that. Let's see. So the budget status, we've paid our consultant about $122,000 to date. There's about $23,000 left in their contract that expires the end of the month. And we had a 3-party agreement with BNSF, and we have paid them about a little over $26,000 out of an approximate $50,000 contract.
That was the requirement by BNSF, that they hire an engineering firm to represent their interests, and then we pay the cost of
Yes.
their engineering.
Yes.
firm. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a 3-party agreement. Actually, it was more than that, but it included OPPD as a railroad as well with BNSF. So at this point, I don't think we've made any real progress. I'm not very confident of things moving ahead. So,
Any questions for Roger about this? Yeah, Brody.
Yeah, Roger, just a couple points of clarification. I just want to make sure I have the numbers correct of the financial impact of us either moving forward or not moving forward. So with the consultant that the railroad or the Burlington Northern would want us to pay, that'd be $50,000.
another $50,000.
Another $50,000. And you said that that there's some leverage that they have when it comes to that decision. Can you expand on that, on why they have that leverage?
Well, because it's their right-of-way and their equipment.
Okay.
And we can't hire a if you did a quiet zone or a project, you can hire a private contractor to build the roadway and the medians up to. But the railroad does their own work, hires their own contractor, and you really have to meet their requirements. So that they would have power over the RTSD in saying they won't sign an agreement to agree to the improvements and construct the improvements. And so I'm not very confident that we'll be successful moving ahead.
And so then with that authority that they have, is that the same problem we find ourselves then and with the preemption study?
Yes.
Okay, and the cost was, you said 4 million?
No,
Oh,
the preemption study
Okay.
was the 50,000.
The 50,000, okay.
The 4 million is a fairly conservative estimate of construction costs to improve those crossings, probably put in new gates and lights where needed. But
Okay.
when we get to a final product, I'm fairly confident that those numbers will go up 50 to 100%
Okay.
to get to construction.
I've always found that when you start dealing with construction or redoing anything, there is such a thing as called remodel creep. And one thing leads to another thing, and you find out different faults or different things don't work. And so this, absolutely, I'm convinced that this is a very modest, I would say, amount. I've been on the board quite a while, and we've talked about this frequently, and it appears to me that, you know, as I mentioned one time to friends, I think that the Burlington Northern has a lot more resources than what Lancaster County has as far as financial, and they have the time on their side. They can make the requirements and so forth. I just really think that we're kind of in a difficult position to move forward.
Your remodel creep, I guess the other thing I should say too, is we all know if you standards change for improvements to increase safety and do things, if you kind of use what's out there, you're okay and you meet the requirements. But once you start removing a piece and getting into it, you're somewhat required to meet the new standards. And, you know, just there are a lot of new additional standards for railroad crossings over what was constructed out there in the beginning.
Very good. So Roger, if I'm hearing this right, this is just at a complete standstill. Going forward, it will not move forward in your mind.
In my mind, no.
Yeah. Is there any thought of some type of staging or smaller chunks of one intersection at a time, or taking a longer time frame, or any other ideas? I hear from constituents a lot concerned about this project, and
Sure.
Certainly don't ignore their concerns.
The challenge that we're at is the board approved a high-level feasibility study to try to come up with an estimate of the cost to do a project. We're not even at the point we could decide to do some phasing because we're not certain that we could get the railroad to even go along with that. So I think we would be spending more time until you actually get into the design and picked. Well, and then are we going to pick and choose? How are we going to choose which neighbor, which crossing do we make a quiet zone, which one we don't? So because we've only got a feasibility study here on the board and we've not done any design, there's no authorization to move ahead. I don't see that being very viable either.
Thank you.
And going off of Councilman Carlson's question, if we choose to not move forward today with this quiet zone, can we not have those discussions then with Burlington Northern about potentially what we have to do to get to where we're able to do it in phases or at least increments?
If the board directed me to continue those discussions, certainly I could. Maybe we should have also said the railroads as a general rule do not support quiet zones. Quiet zones to them and our own NDOT consider them to be quality of life issues, not a safety improvement. So I think they're going to be reluctant to continue to do anything. From their standpoint, you know, we have gates and lights and medians at all of the cross sections, or all of the crossings except two. I think Southwood Drive and 70th Street doesn't have a median. So most of the safety equipment is there. From their standpoint, you're taking away the locomotive horn, which from their standpoint, is a real safety thing to really warn people that they're coming through. So they're going to be less than enthusiastic in doing anything to remove blowing the horn from those intersections.
They've kind of drawn a hard line here in front of with the letter, and I believe I forwarded it to everyone. Their letter is very well written, very professional, but it's kind of a hard line saying, "Here's where we're at. We're not moving." So,
How many years have we been working on this quiet zone?
whenever
Our
they
initial contract with FHU was executed in April of '21, so 3 years, a little over 3 years. We've done, I think, 4 amendments to that.
Yeah, I think that we've seen examples of how the railroad continually works. Yeah, and I just am doubtful that we would see much more progress over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years.
Well, the uncertainty, I mean, and I don't want to make light. I will acknowledge that there is a part of our population out there that can really suffer with health issues and noise issues. The challenge is we're talking less than 1 train a day. At any given point in time in the next year or two, that coal contract could go to Union Pacific or come in from another way, or it could continue here. There's just a lot of uncertainty, and my sense for the board's consideration is that's a huge amount, potentially a huge amount of property tax that maybe the cost-benefit ratio isn't as good as it could be with some of our other projects.
Great discussion, great questions by everybody, great comments. Anything else? Item C, Roger.
Okay. Allison from Lincoln Parks and Recreation is here.
Well,
Again.
we've got a Northwest 12th crossing
Oh,
removal.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not here just for my good looks, Roger. Come on.
Okay, Northwest 12th, good news. The city does have agreements with Union Pacific in place to remove 3 at-grade crossings that include 4 tracks, 2 crossings and 3 tracks on Northwest 12th, 1 on Kingbird Road. The city is intending, I think, in about a week or 2 weeks to bid a project to remove those tracks, and construction could start in August. And consistent with what we've done in other areas, the city will probably come back through the master agreement and request cost sharing reimbursement from the RTSD for the cost to physically remove the tracks and put the pavement back within the railroad right away. And I don't have exact numbers on that, but we have a master agreement that allows that to occur. So that discussion would go on this fall.
It's really good news to get those tracks out.
Another one that's taken way longer than it should, I guess. Seems
Luckily,
like
we
it.
have somebody who is very persevering working on this stuff.
Or old and stubborn.
Very good. Anything else?
Roger, I just want to say that, I'm really excited about this project, and I think that it's a really smart investment in our infrastructure, and so I'm really grateful that LTU and the RTSD are able to do this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Now we'll move on to item number 11, consideration of the Beal Slough interlocal agreement.
And I don't know that I need to go into a lot of detail. I'm just reminding folks that the Parks Department is building and extending that Beal Slough Trail. It's already to Pine Lake, and it'll parallel Beal Slough and kind of the railroad tracks down. And the intent is to go underneath the OPPD tracks on the west side of 70th Street rather than having to have pedestrians and bicyclists go across that crossing at grade. Very consistent with projects, whether they be roadway projects, trail projects. The RTSD has provided the cost share for that work on the railroad right away and going underneath. This interlocal agreement is exactly that, an agreement between the city and the RTSD that we would reimburse them $295,000 for the cost. I think when I was here in March, the estimate was about 185, and they have done better refinement. They're getting closer to having better plans, and that cost had gone up. And I am very comfortable with that. If you have questions about the trail itself, I certainly would ask Allison to come forward.
Why don't we have Allison
Okay.
just come up and give us an overview of the park's perspective?
Got a map if you want a reminder. Is there a mic I need to speak into?
Either
Yes,
one.
just come
I think they both work.
I don't know if you can see what I.
Is
put up
that,
here or not.
is that on, folks?
I don't know if it's on. Yeah, just as a reminder, it's 2.2 miles of trail. Starts at 56th Street, just south of Nebraska Parkway, and goes all the way to Yankee Hill. The crossing of under the railroad tracks is just on the west side of 70th Street. Perfect. And we are in the process of doing additional engineering evaluation so that we can demonstrate to OPPD, who owns the line, the constructability of our undercrossing, and kind of work through that we have all the right elements in place. Fencing, the hydraulics have been considered, and so the increase really has to do with the engineering support that we need to be able to provide to OPPD to demonstrate our construction plans, and then also increasing of our estimate of the construction cost just related to the actual wall construction needed for the trail under the crossing.
And so this is crossing from west to east at Pine Lake Road?
Yeah, can you, let's.
We've got the map
Yeah,
in
we've got
front
it.
of us,
Okay.
and I guess.
Yeah, the crossing is here. 70th Street is on the east side, and the line runs east-west, and the trail, Beal Slough is the channel that
there,
runs.
Down slow and south.
Yeah, Beal Slough
Okay.
is the waterway, and the trail crossing is on the west side, would go under the bridge, between bridge piles.
Okay. And you say we do have an agreement with OPPD, or we're working on that?
So we're in the process of coordination to demonstrate all the design elements and ensure that we have the fencing along the right of way and a protective overcovering. So we're in the process of providing the technical details so that they feel comfortable about what our construction needs and methods are, where our excavation limits are, that we have lighting is another element here. So we are in the process of coordinating and providing them with the technical information that's necessary. And in tandem with that, we're working on the CNM agreement with OPPD for when we get there technically, that we have the property rights and the agreement between the city and OPPD for construction.
Any questions for Allison? Any anticipation of when you'll have that agreement completed, Allison?
They, we are in terms of the agreement, we're in the first draft of that, and so they'll be reviewing and providing comments back. We're prioritizing getting them the technical information so that they feel comfortable. I don't have a good timeline of when we'll have the agreement. I think that's based on what we'll hear back from OPPD on their comments and their review time.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions for Allison? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I might just say, if the board approves this interlocal agreement, then it would be sent on to the city, and it would need to come through the city council and a resolution for that approval. And then it's in this budget for 24-25 at such time as they get ready for construction, anytime between now and next June 30. That interlocal would cover that, and if they get delayed, we could look at renewing the interlocal.
I would make that motion to approve that interlocal agreement.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Brody, second by Roma. Any further discussion? Got those two together, nothing's going to stop that. I would just say that this is consistent with our mission in that it's taking cyclists, and pedestrians from at-grade crossing and putting them in a safe crossing so that they don't interact with train traffic. It's what we've done before. There is history on our side here. So with that, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Motion carries 4-0. All because of Allison's good work there. We'll go with that. All right, Roger. Item 12, report of other matters.
Okay. Mr. Kudelek's going to come and give us an update on the grievance
All right.
lawsuit.
Okay. Bill Kudelek, Crosby Gunzel Law Firm, counsel to the RTSD, and some of you don't know probably. It's been a while since I reported last on this tort claim that was lodged against the RTSD. In my experience, this is the only claim I think the RTSD has had against it in its history, but it stems from an event. A cyclist was riding the sidewalk on August 21st, 2019 at 4:30 a.m. Sidewalk ends and was injured on the railroad tracks there at Northwest 12th Street and Kingbird Road. The RTSD received a tort claim, the city of Lincoln also as well, and ultimately Mr. Britton did file a lawsuit against the city, later amended to include the RTSD in July 2021. The RTSD engaged, made a claim with its insurer, which appointed Steve All, local attorney Steve All with the Baylor Evans firm to defend. So it went through the discovery phase. Recently, Mr. All, on behalf of the RTSD, filed a motion for summary judgment indicating that the negligence claim against the RTSD could not continue because the RTSD did not have a duty to the cyclist, to the plaintiff, and was successful. So Judge Nelson entered an order in favor of the RTSD on that matter, which removes, I guess, the RTSD as a defendant to the case. The city is still involved. They also filed a motion for summary judgment, was unsuccessful. So that case is set for trial October 23rd and 24th. I'll continue to monitor it, but for all intents and purposes, it's unlikely that a list will come back around to the RTSD. Okay. Any questions on that?
Good news. Thank you,
Good
Bill.
work.
Item 13, Roger, communications correspondence.
Don't really have anything there. I was going to do it at the end, but under item 12, just other matters, I just wanted to make sure that the public was hearing and remind the board we have proposed and intend to move the September meeting to September 10th, moving it a week later away from the holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Just too many times we've ended up, with the board meeting the Monday or Tuesday after Monday holiday, and it's created some challenges. It will mean we need to be very diligent to make sure we have a quorum because there are budget requirements that need to get to the state by the end of September. So, but just wanted to publicly announce, and we've changed that date on the RTSD website as well, so folks will know the next meeting would be September 10th. That it'll include two meetings, the budget hearing, followed then immediately by the regular meeting. So,
Okay, very good. No correspondence then, you said. Item number 14, non-agenda items or public comment. Is there anyone here from the public who would wish to comment at this time?
Hello, board members. My name is Andy Faust. I live at 8351 Emery Lane. I work for SMART TD, which is a rail organization in Nebraska. But I'm here today as a citizen south of 70th Street. And when we were talking about the quiet zones, that has been a concern of everyone south of the crossings all the way from Pioneers to 96th Street. I would like to suggest as a citizen that we end that project. It's a waste of money. The railroads don't care because they have no interest in paying for anything. And they're going to drag it out as long as possible. My concern and for my organization and also me living south of that, of 70th Street, is the blocked crossings. When they have a mechanical failure, when they run trains, they know they're going to have a mechanical failure in the winter with air problems, with braking problems, and they've had 3 in 3 days before. That's affecting first responders, and that's also affecting children going to school. Now there's, from 56 to 96th Street, there's 3 schools south of that crossing, and that's affecting an elementary, a middle school, and also the high school, Standing Bear by Saltillo. It's also affecting daycares at the YMCA. So that's my main concern. The quiet zones, it's going to be there. I've watched a board meeting years ago. I think it was like 2020, and they came out with, I think it was 1.2 million for each crossing. That's way low. 70th alone is going to be probably, I would say, 2.8 million. You're going to have to widen 70th, and then you're going to have to build your medians in the middle. And there's other crossings. 56th Street, I don't know how you would make that a quiet zone. It's the worst crossing in the state, if not the United States, because there's just everything meeting there. So I would suggest that the board just not continue to that project and move on, and maybe move that money into things that we can make better. 33rd Street project. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Faust. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second?
Motion by Roma, second by Justin to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.